your girl, Sunny Day. This is my YouTube channel, My Socially Speaking, but you already know that, right? I'm the author of Social Work Drama, and if you haven't read it yet, you're still missing out. Maybe one day, maybe someday. Well, today I dreadfully, and I honestly mean dreadfully, I'm gonna weigh in just a little bit on the Leaving Netherland documentary. It was intense. I don't know who has seen it, who hasn't seen it. I kind of was disinterested in watching it and honestly fell upon it, basically. Like I ended up on HBO, and because for some reason I thought it was past, like a long time ago, that it wasn't even airing anymore. And somehow I ended up on HBO, and it was like right there. So I did go back to it later on and tuned in, watched it. Watched 1 and 2, and after I watched 1 and 2, soon thereafter I did watch Oprah's on her own. I went looking for that one. The show that she had with the 2 gentlemen, I watched that too. So, and then I heard that she was getting a lot of negative feedback for doing it. So I've never ever heard of these 2 gentlemen, but when I watched them, I can't even remember the names. I know one, his name is Wade. When I watched, I remembered, because when they went back to the childhood, I remembered watching Michael and his performances, and I remember those 2 little boys all the time. Every time they showed them during their childhood and their performances, I remember seeing them with Paula Abdul and seeing them performing. So what was, now I had to take I watched it probably maybe 5 days ago, and I needed time to process what I had seen and heard. First of all, let me say, throughout my entire career, I have counseled men and women that were victims of sexual assault, molestation, sex crimes, and I have counseled a few pedophiles when I worked in a MICA, a mentally ill, chemically addicted men's shelter. So I can say that through working with victims of molestation and working with adults that have experienced sexual assault, childhood trauma, it's been extremely, extremely rare when I've ever counseled someone and they actually said to me that I have been sexually assaulted, molested, raped, without them having some strong difficulty even communicating those words easily or effortlessly. They've always had some kind of breakdown in communication, tearing up, choking up, long pauses, just obviously extremely distraught whether it was the first time they said it or whether it was the 10th time they've said it, they have always, from my experience and from my observation, a victim of sexual assault, rape, molestation, they've always had some difficulty with communicating it, saying it out loud. And much of the time, whether it was a man or a woman, they would also become extremely tearful. Now, that's something I did not see at all that was a little alarming to me while I was watching the documentary. Not the one that's named Wade, but the other one. I could kick myself for not remembering his name. Thank God it was only two of them. But one of them seemed, throughout the entire documentary, he had like a face like of pain and hurt, a facial expression that kind of stuck with him throughout the entire thing. If you watched it or if you watch it, you'll see what I mean. Now, I don't know if their testimonies were rehearsed or I think both of them have received psychotherapy at this point, addressing it. But I just didn't see, and it doesn't mean it's false accusations or not, but I just didn't see a lot of the pain. I heard it, but I just didn't see it. And I mean, there's always a ton of back information in these types of situations that will almost never ever gain or never get enough of information just because it's a high profile case and it's like TV. There's a ton of back end information possibly that we'll never receive. But that stood out to me that they were able to communicate it. I found that so interesting without just totally breaking down. But maybe they rehearsed it, maybe they practiced, maybe they were over it. Because when it comes to sexual assault, I do know this. If a young child is violated in that way, and if they receive treatment, specific treatment for those issues, it can be, that therapeutic clinical treatment can be so impressionable that you can actually live a life almost as it's never happened. But you've got to get that clinical treatment right away, like right away. I don't think that happened with these young men. That was also something a little odd to me because they didn't say anything. They didn't tell. That wasn't strange that they didn't tell. But also, when someone is a victim of a sex crime, molestation, or rape, there's symptoms behind it. There's and it's different for everybody. You can acquire some type of habit-forming condition, illicit use, abuse, gambling, overeating, becoming withdrawn, isolated, violent. You can become criminal. There's always some kind of symptom. So it was also strange to me that they went through these harsh situations, but were still able to dance around, and they didn't really appear. Yes, they did as they got older. I was going to say they didn't appear to still be happy, but they did. They did. And they both said they were in love with him and idolized him. And that's why they didn't say anything, and that's why they kept dancing. They wanted to be with him forever, basically. So that was just standing out to me because people that I've counseled, I've always seen or heard of them having some kind of behavioral, some type of social issue, some type of mental health issue. That trauma can trigger many different things. You're not going to be repeatedly violated for a long period of time and it has like no effect. Like you're really just living seemingly normally. There's going to be something in your life that will be heavily affected by it at some point or another. So them going from, I think they said 5 or 6 years of age, sexually assaulted, all the way to like 15, almost 18 or something for one of them, 17 or something. And you're still able, and I get it, one of them or both of them were, using the dancing to, it seemed as though he was using the dancing, or both of them still use the dancing as work, like hiding behind your work. And I know that can be an outlet for someone, but I guess I would have to talk to someone that's close to them so I could identify what was your, there had to be something. There had to be something, some way you were affected, some way they were affected by it psychologically, from the age of 6 to like 17 or 18. Had to be something substantial, something that really stood out. Like I said, most people that suffer that type of childhood trauma, like 95% of them, if not 99% of them, and you could do your own research if you don't take my word for it, there is some kind of symptom behind it, some type of habit forming, maybe condition, like I said, illicit use, alcoholism. It's going to be something, or sometimes, not every time, the person that has had that imposed upon them in turn becomes also a pedophile. They practice that learned behavior. It's highly unlikely that you're going to have that kind of condition, that type of childhood trauma, and then you're just going to still be able to not be affected by it psychologically, emotionally. And that's how it seemed in the documentary. I mean, one of the guys actually said also that the reason why he's even talking about it is because he has a child, so he's not going to allow that to happen to his child. Which leads me to say my other concern was, why talk about it now? And of course, we're in the era of Me Too. So those conversations are definitely encouraged because we need for those situations to be brought to light so we can have less and less and less and less and less of these crimes, because they ruin a person's whole entire life. Someone sexually abused, someone molested as a young child, their whole entire life can be destroyed. Even if you're able on the forefront, R. Kelly, to seem like you are successful, eventually you're not going to be able to control it or hide it any longer. And any mental health condition that you have most likely will worsen as you age. R. Kelly. I know this is not about R. Kelly, and I'm not trying to bash him either because he's very sick and disturbed. But just to use him as an example, if that's even true, how everybody always says allegedly. So anyhow, yeah, I was concerned about the fact that these guys brought this up about Michael after his demise. It's been a decade now. But you are able to report your sex crime or what has been imposed upon you whenever you feel like it, especially in the age. That's what I was thinking they were coming out now about it. That's why I thought they were coming out about it now, because of the Me Too age that we're living in, which is, again, encouraged because we are putting people on blast, and we're going to have less and less and less and less and less reports of pedophilia. Less and less because more people have been encouraged to talk about it. There is no shame attached to it. For years, decades, people have felt like it was their fault. Now people know it's not. And people are becoming more educated. People are not, at least I hope people aren't still leaving their kids with strangers. And even if you leave your children with people that you know, you still have to pay attention. There's no child is safe. You always look with the side eye. And I always tell people that no matter what, I've had women that have been molested. I have women and men that have been molested by their grandmothers. Women molest too. I've had men molested, obviously, by men. I've had men that would tell me during counseling that they have had families visit out of town, or they would go out of town to visit family with their parents, and their parents would have them unsupervised sleeping in rooms with flamboyantly gay people, gay relatives that ended up molesting the male child. Homosexual male cousin molested my client reportedly, and my client was a male. And then he ended up getting married, but still always had those urges towards a male because, of course, the sexual stimulation, the sensual part of it, which makes everybody feel guilty because of the pleasure part. So, but anyway, because of working in the field, I've learned to always encourage people to be observant, pay attention to your intuition, your instincts, do not lie, and nobody, don't let your guards down for anybody. I don't care. Biological father, I don't care. You have to look at everyone with the side eye and always check your child. But anyhow, I'm sorry. I slightly digress as I always do. So, and which that was another thing that was odd about the documentary. Both of the guys' parents, it was like, and I know some people are very cavalier about things like that because the mom said, oh, well, since Michael was not found guilty, I let my child still hang with him and spend the night with him. And just my mind was saying, yeah, even though you still love him and you believe what he's saying, but just because of those accusations, it would be wise to use wisdom and say, you know what, still love you, Michael, but my child is not going to sleep in a room with you anymore. But I don't believe it, but still, just to be on the safe side, no. But she didn't do that. She said Michael cried and begged her, and she still allowed him to sleep with him in the bed, and the child continued to be molested. So I'm still, and I like Michael Jackson too, and I guess that doesn't even really matter. I'm kind of still uncertain as to whether or not I believe it or not. And I'm a little bit biased because I've liked him so much. And I honestly feel a little bit funny lately. The past week when I've heard his music, I felt a little funny. And then I get it too that very, very young childhood celebrities do have a tendency to miss out on some important parts of a childhood. So I get it when they say that he did like to hang out, when he said he liked to hang out with kids for that reason. But that could be just a cover up. And then the footage, they got a lot of footage of him talking on the phone. And he sounded normal. But one thing too that stood out to me, another thing, I don't know why, but I do know why. Um, I never believed Michael's marriages. I just didn't believe it. It. I just had always the feeling like the girl or the wife. What was her name? Priscilla Presley. It had just always seemed like to me like she loved him more than he loved her. For some reason, it just felt fake to me. And they mentioned that in the documentary. One of the guys said that Michael told him, "I'll get married, but it won't mean anything." And then I started wondering, okay, if it's true, if Michael really did it, did anyone do it to him? Was he molested? Because that family just seems so close and they seem so protective of one another. I just wondered, did his father molest him, or did one of his brothers or another male family member? We just found out recently that Whitney Houston's cousin, Dionne Warwick's sister, molested Whitney and Whitney's brother. That was revealed in Whitney's last documentary, the one that was in the movies. And Dionne Warwick's sister, the perpetrator who molested Whitney and Whitney's brother, she's passed away. So I was kind of, when I saw that documentary, I was like, why, not, don't bring it up. Bring it up whenever you feel like it. Bring it up whenever you're comfortable. But it's, you want the person to pay for their crime, when you do something like that to a child. And that's probably why Whitney ended up, and her brother, using illicit substances. That's why I say there's always a symptom of it. And allegedly, Whitney never said anything. I mean, her brother said it in the documentary. I don't remember if she said it or not. But going back just a minute to R. Kelly, he said it. He admitted it years ago to the guy Torre on BET in an interview, and then he said it again when Gail asked him about it. But he's so disturbed. He actually said, when she asked him initially, were you affected by the sexual assault? He said no initially, but he's so disconnected. And then I think a second later, he contemplated quickly and said that he was. But after I watched the documentary with these two gentlemen, with these disturbing reports of what Michael did to them, and even more disturbing, or just as disturbing, was the parents who continued to allow their child to hang out with him. I watched her special with them, and she was saying that she just realized at the age of 42, I know she's like 60, but she was talking about how at the age of 42, she finally realized it wasn't her fault, her sexual assault. But I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea to ever bash anybody. Because I heard that Oprah was getting a lot of flack for doing that. But I did hear her say that this is bigger than Michael, and I do agree with that, because we got to put these instances, this epidemic of molestation, these crimes, we got to put them on blast. We have to because here's the situation. I know that God can cure you from that. But other than that, a pedophile will tell you themselves that they cannot be cured. A pedophile will say to you that they will always be attracted to children. I've heard them in counseling say that to me, and clinically that is the case, and the treatment for it is so rare, it's so extreme, and it's so long term. It's not even really done here. I think they do the treatment for that is like in Canada, and it's like very, very long, and it makes I think I talked about it a little bit before. The treatment for pedophiles would consist of them not having an erection. I mean, if we're talking about the men, because women molest too. But the men don't want, and they'll end up taking a part of the treatment would be antidepressants in some cases. So some of it causes the man to not have an erection. And a lot of the men are just not willing. They're just unwilling to participate in that type of treatment. And it's a lot of extensive videos to watch, like a lot of simulations, like painful things, like your penis getting caught in your zipper and experiencing the pain. It's just really intense. So the treatment is rare. A lot of pedophiles don't receive treatment. And again, that's for the men. I don't even know the current treatments for women. So we need to have these admissions. We need to have the conversations. We need to continue to be educated and keep it in the forefront so people are talking about it now, and hopefully the pedophiles are discouraged from even committing these crimes. And because again, it ruins a person's entire life. But as for me, I don't, if I have to say what I'm believing, I would probably say I don't believe the guys. And it's just, I didn't see enough emotion, which again probably doesn't mean that much because again, could have been practiced, could have been talked about. And then I was watching TMZ, and some other guy named Aaron from NSYNC that grew up with the guy Wade was saying that the guys are getting money from interviews, not from that documentary supposedly, but they're getting paid for interviews. And the guy Aaron said that the guy Wade is upset because he wasn't included in some kind of program or something. So, and then the way the world is now with the mindsets and the thinking of people, it's just so complicit, it's so distorted, it's so disturbed. Oh my gosh, on so many levels. People are doing the unthinkable. So it's really, really difficult to ascertain whether or not someone is credible. I mean, honestly, it's like you can't believe anything, pretty much. And that's, for me, that's a struggle because I do like to see the better. You know, I definitely have to be more discerning myself, even as a clinician, because I'm old school clinical, and it was always about support, 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 heal, 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 support, support, support. But people are so cunning and dishonest. You kind of gotta like see a lot before you can even support somebody. It's so sad too to have to do it that way, because then there are so many undersupported people. And so I encourage you, if you could tolerate it, watch it. Prepare yourself because it's real intense. And if you're even interested, you know, I don't know how much good it'll do to watch it or not to watch it. But if you're so inclined to watch it, and also watch the Oprah part too. The her doing the interview with the guy, and it was kind of like, to me, she had the guy that created the documentary, and I just was like, why? He gave his explanation as to why he put the documentary together, but it just didn't make sense to me. I think he said he stumbled on some information or something like that. I kind of forgot. So it wasn't anything that caught me. It was kind of like, so why are you doing this? I only want to know why they're doing it, to try to figure out if it's true, you know, it's possibly true. I know the Jacksons have put out a $3 million lawsuit towards HBO, against HBO. So, okay, so that's my topic. And later on this week, I'm going to come back with some more upbeat um, topics. But remember, these hard discussions are just so we can stay mindful of our society and be supportive of each other and try not to be judgmental, but just to be educated and learn what's going on so that we can be of assistance to one another, not to condone negative criminal behavior, but to be supportive and to bring some understanding. Because if we understand, then we are able to help one another and help society to move in the right direction and to be better for one another. All right? So, as always, we still got each other's heart in each other's hand, and we're going to act like we know that, and we're going to show love and support and appreciation to one another, just like I have for you for tuning in. Thank you, and see you soon.